Hi, friends. Thank you for joining me today. I have missed videos. I hope that you will like, subscribe, share, and of course, more than anything, share comments with me. I'd love to know where you're at with some of the content I'm sharing. Today, I want to talk about, this idea of fairy tales. All of us grew up, at least I'm assuming, watching Disney movies, Hallmark movies, and there were these stories of romance and courage and love that actually, upon a different inspection, we see that it is maybe not that good, maybe a little bit toxic, unhealthy, and lacking boundaries, right? So, a book that I've really been enjoying is called It's Not You, Identity and Healing from Narcissistic People, Dr. Ramani Diversala. Very good book, and I highly recommend this. I'm towards the end, and there's a wonderful recommendation that she made about how you can process some of your poor expectations on life through looking at fairy tales and perhaps doing a rewrite on that. So on page two, let's see, actually it's not, sorry about that. On page 297, it is Rewrite a Fairy Tale. Why do childhood stories matter? Because they become the tropes of how adult romantic stories are constructed. Pursuit, rescue, happily ever after. Most of us were raised on fairy tales which basically reinforced gender roles, punished individuals, and glorified everything about narcissistic relationships. Love bombing, forced narcissistic relationships, forgiveness that might not have been healthy, obedience, grandiosity, and future faking. If you come from a narcissistic family system, or even if you don't, and these stories are still under your skin, this is a useful exercise. Take a fairy tale you heard in childhood and reflect on how it may have perpetuated the justification of abusive patterns within your family, or how it may have reinforced patterns in an adult intimate relationship or in the workplace. If I don't just work harder and never expect to be seen, then a bunch of mice and fairy godmother will help me out and I will find true love. Then rewrite this old and romantic story or write it in a balanced way. For example, the story of the red shoes was told as a story about a bad girl who didn't listen to her parents and who was punished for disobedience. Instead, frame it as a story of a girl who cared about beauty and joy and was punished for just wanting to be herself. When you can braid these childhood stories, you may also be able to undo some of the rigid thinking that has pervaded your narrative. Well, this resonated with me because early on in my recovery, I was sitting outside having my lunch and I, for whatever reason, started thinking about the story of the Beauty and the Beast. And how, no offense, effed up it was. I was like, wait a minute. She had to rescue a rageaholic. And because of her gentleness and her love, the rageaholic became wonderful and a prince. And unfortunately, in my family of origin, there were people in my family who were like this, who were angry and difficult and selfish. And we just wanted to rescue them. And it began to be something that happened that I looked at in relationships that I had where I thought, if I can just love better, I can save them. So I decided to rewrite that story. And I want to share it with you. There are pieces of my real, actual experiences wrapped up into the story. I found it extremely therapeutic, and it helped me almost say some things that I wasn't able to say before. So here we go. Story time with Aunt Amanda. My nieces and nephews always love that. Long ago, in a small village, there was a father and his daughter. The daughter's name was Belle. Belle was noticed and seen by her community. They saw that she was wise, curious, lovely. As Belle grew into a young woman, she was encouraged to be part of the community and to share her wisdom and insight. Belle was known as someone who discerned people and their actions well. Belle was loved for being that unique oddball who made the world brighter with her humor, wisdom, and honesty. Belle's dad had a passion and a focus for making the world better too, but starting first with his daughter, then moving into his community. Belle knew that she could turn to her father for anything. She recognized what sacrifice looked like because her father modeled it every day. If a sacrifice needed to be made, he would make it. Under no circumstances would he allow her to ruin her life to save him. This, her father knew, was an inverted approach to life that he would not allow. His daughter deserved love and protection. From her abundance, Belle held enough reserves to give to others. When her father was offered a great sum of money and renown, if he would only sell his daughter into an arranged marriage, he flatly refused. He knew this man was a monster and used to control and using money and power to stay in control. He also knew that he was deformed both in body and spirit. However, the controlling monster had never heard the word no before. In response to this rejection, the monster had Belle's father killed and paid these brutes extra money to abduct Belle and take her to his estate. Quickly, Belle discovered that the monster would have daily outbursts of anger, throwing things and storming out. No matter the outburst, Belle knew real men aren't like this. Belle was wise and strong, and even though she was a captive, she had the strength to hold on. Some days she wasn't given very much food, and other days the beast would bang on her door at night, shouting to terrify her. In these moments, Belle would escape into her mind and talk with her father. At times, while the beast was roaring and carrying on, Belle would look out the window and imagine herself up in the trees with the birds, sometimes filled with the memory of her father's love. Belle would have the courage to confront the outbursts. Belle had some sympathy for this pitiable man. At times, the beast would be kind and then declare his love for Belle while she sat in his presence, shackled. Belle never lost sight of reality. She was bound and held against her will. Real men sacrifice themselves and protect others and never force love. Meanwhile, word in the town spread that Belle was gone and her father was dead. Because Belle was such a valuable contribution to those around her, Phoebus noticed her absence. He decided to search for her whereabouts. There we go. While in captivity, Belle looked for a way of escape. The day that she was left unattended while her shackles were off, she knew was the chance she had been looking for. She had to act fast. She ran barefoot towards the armory and selected a sword for protection. She would fight her way out or die trying. While Belle ran in the front yard, she stumbled on something hidden under the leaves. As she pushed herself up, she saw something shining. It was her father's bugle. She knew it well. Belle quickly tucked it into her dress and continued to run in the direction of the forest. As Belle got to the edge of the forest, she could finally see where she was. In the distance was her town. Just as she was getting her bearings, Belle heard the loud sound of the carriage speeding her direction. There was no time to lose. She fumbled with her dress, pulling out the bugle, placing the trumpet on her lips, remembering the first time she blew the horn with her father by her side. A loud blast rolled through the valley, echoing and bouncing off the hills and the mountains. Carrying over and over, she blew the loud sound of alarm, only stopping when she heard that the carriage was almost within view. With trembling hands, Belle tucked the bugle back into her dress, and with two free hands, she gripped the sword, prepared to fight. What Belle didn't know was that Phoebus was in the forest on one of his daily searches to discover a clue to where Belle was. Phoebus jumped at the unmistakable sound of the horn, and he rushed towards the alarm. The beast stopped as the road ran out of room. In one fast move, he was out of the carriage in front of Belle as she shouted, "Get back! Let me go! I mean it! I called for help. Someone will be here soon." The beast laughed as he seethed with anger. "No one is coming. You're delusional," he said, before he lunged forward to attack Belle. With all her strength, she used the sword to slash at the beast, making contact with his chest, creating a gash that spurted blood. Hearing the beast's roar of fury caused Phoebus to jump and pick up his speed as he headed straight to the commotion. Meanwhile, the beast was stumbling, holding his chest in pained surprise. How could the gentle Belle have done this to him? As he looked at her, she looked stronger and fiercer than he believed she could have looked. The beast was calculating. Months of sleep deprivation and withholding food from Belle hadn't weakened her, at least not in this moment. He decided to bluff. He threw his arms in the air and walked towards the carriage. Then, glancing quickly over his shoulder, the beast could see that Belle slacked her grip on the sword, and her shoulders relaxed as she believed he would let her go. This was what he had hoped to see. In a blink of an eye, the beast rushed Belle. Belle's eyes widened in terror as she felt the power of the strength of the beast knocking the sword out of her hands. In the next moment, Belle gasped for air as she felt his cruel hands wrapped around her neck. Then she felt her feet lifting off the ground, only the tips of her toes feeling the weight of her body. Her eyes met his. Belle saw the soulless hate in the beast's eyes. He would kill her for trying to find her freedom. She only had moments left to live. Her mind flashed to the memories of her father, and she felt some comfort as she reflected on the hope that she had of an eternity in heaven. But just as life was draining from her body, as she lost consciousness, she heard a crunching sound. She felt something warm splash on her face, and then she felt the painful thud of her body slamming into the dirt. Belle gasped for life-giving oxygen as she lay motionless. But she heard the rage-filled roar of the beast and the sound of a skirmish and the man's voice shouting at the beast. Belle slowly opened her eyes and saw the final blow that Phoebus landed on the beast. He had her sword. She watched as the blade flew through the air, making contact with the beast, cutting his head clean off. Belle gasped as she felt the ground shake at the crashing of the beast's body making contact with the earth, lifelessly laying there as blood began to pool. He would never hurt her again. Once Phoebus was sure that the beast had been dispatched, he ran to check on Belle. Belle had blood on her face. Phoebus looked her over, touching her cheek to make sure she wasn't injured. Belle began to push herself up, attempting to sit. "Careful. You've been through a lot. Do you feel safe enough to come with me? I can take you home." "Thank thank you. How did you end up here? The town has missed you. When we discovered the news of your father's death and that you were missing, we attempted to find you. Sorry. The death of your father, we attempted a search, and I continued that search. Belle felt loved and the courage that comes from love. She didn't know the future or what to expect, but knowing her community was still there would give her the strength to move forward. Phoebus helped her up and gently lifted her into the carriage so he could take her home and back to her community. And that's where the story really begins, right? I encourage you to think about the stories that have affected the way that you view the world, the way that you view yourself, the way that you look at relationships and friendships and romance. Are there ideas in there that shouldn't be? Do you think you can save an angry, violent person? Do you think it's your place, your identity, your purpose? I hope you'll think about that, as I have been thinking about it and reevaluating, who am I? What was I made for? What is God's plan for me? What does romance really look like? Thanks for joining me, friends. I look forward to seeing you next week. I'll talk to you soon.